Welcome to SCORE, a weekly program on 880 AM The Biz, designed for South Florida's small businesses with experts from Broward SCORE. For questions or comments, contact broward.score.org. SCORE is a project of Broward SCORE, a nonprofit and a resource partner of the Small Business Administration. Visit broward.score.org.
Welcome to SCORE. I'm Patty Maldonado. This week on SCORE, we're going to focus on bulletproofing your business and what that actually means. And what's prompting this discussion, quite frankly, is a new workshop that Broward SCORE is launching next week for small businesses. Next week, I should say next month, the beginning of next month. It's Wednesday, September 4th, and it's the first time Broward SCORE really tackles this issue of protecting your business from some kind of an attack, be it, a hacker, be it some kind of natural disaster that could bring your business to a halt because you don't have email or your phone's not working or a variety of other issues. And joining us today is Tony Brown. He is president of Spider Networks. It's a company based in Broward. It's an IT firm that specializes in security and compliance. Welcome, Tony.
Well, good morning, and welcome to the SCORE Show.
Well, thank you. So you're going to be doing this great new workshop called Bulletproofing Your Business or Bulletproof Your Business. Tell us what exactly that means. I gave like a little summary, but I'm sure you could put it into better words.
Well, basically, one thing about myself is I love working in the computer industry, and we do a lot with security and compliance. And as we run around to a lot of these firms, we see a lot of open issues with them. So one of the things I'm going to try and do is sit down with people and say, hey, look, these are the issues you face, and try to explain each and every one in, not so much in IT words, but in the layman words, so everybody gets to understand and has an opportunity to try and either lock down their systems themselves or take a look at, for example, we live in Florida, and we're known for hurricanes and going through disasters. So from in the past, we've had that huge storm, and we learned an awful lot from that storm, and a lot of businesses went down. So I'd like to help people and say, hey, look, don't look at this stuff when you need it, and when you're under pressure of an emergency. Be proactive. Let's look at this stuff today. See what you can do today before you were in that situation where you're facing an emergency.
And the issues that you're referring to, give us some examples of some things that can really bring a business to a halt.
Well, most people just sit and think, okay, a fire or a hurricane, but truth be told, it can be something as simple as a virus spreading through your system. You can lose everything. Even if you're a single business, you have one computer to multiple machines and a server, a virus can spread through the system and take down the entire system. So, but yes, we're also looking at fires and hurricanes and stuff like that. So
take us through some basic steps that, you can, and anyone listening could just begin doing when they get to their office or even when they get home. I mean, this is even relevant for anybody, with a home office or just with their own home computer, I would think.
Oh, absolutely. Even if you have a single machine at home. And, I constantly run into people and say, oh, God, my computer crashed. Is there anything you can do, if the hard drive's failed? And, well, if you don't have a backup of anything, you've lost all that stuff. So,
well, let's start with that. How often, should you be backing up your computer, even your home computer, for example?
Well, I always put it to people like this. How important it is of the information or data that you have.
Okay.
So if you work on a machine daily, can you afford to lose a day's worth of work?
Right.
Or if you have family pictures, how often are you adding that stuff? And that's how you need to look at your backup. Do you need to do it daily? Do you need to do it monthly? Do you need to do it weekly? How important it is for you to save whatever you're working on.
Okay, so you need to back up your work. Now, obviously, if you have a home computer, maybe you don't need a huge system. You have an office full of computers. How do you know how to go about doing that? Who to go to? Can you do it yourself? Where do you start?
Yes, you can do it yourself. It's actually pretty easy. If you have a single machine, you can actually go to, I don't know, CompUSA or one of the local places like Best Buy and just buy an external drive. And one of the things I always say to people, look, chances are when you first bought these machines, they came with CDs or to restore those machines, and chances are people don't even know where that stuff is.
Right.
So don't just look at backing up your pictures or your data. You need to back up everything. Back up the operating system, back up your office, all your applications.
Right.
And in the old days, people used to use this product called Ghost, and it would image everything.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily, today, we've come a long way from that. One of the products I always recommend is called a Cronus, and what it does is it takes that machine that you have today and physically makes an image of it. So when you need that image or you need to restore a machine, it doesn't just restore data, it restores that entire machine, the operating system, all the applications and software that you purchased over the years and installed it, which you probably don't even have the CDs for anymore. So if you make an image of it,
Mm-hmm.
you have everything, and it's much faster to restore that machine than having to reformat it, find all that software, install the operating system, reinstall all those applications. You just restore from an image.
Okay. So you have a small business and you have to, you have all your computers. I guess you should have a plan to protect all the different equipment that you use for your business. What services are critical to your business operations that you think are worth, that need to be restoring, for example? I mean, I think if you were to be putting together a plan, you should have like an inventory. Walk us through that process.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. If you have a business, you need to sit down and look and say, hey, what do I need to, as a business, what is important to me? For example, we'll start out with most businesses have a server, so obviously the server is going to be very critical to your operation. And each department, for example, you may have an accounting department. What do they use to be able to function?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you keep all of your contacts? Telephones. And of course, you use telephones from a day-to-day basis, and a lot of people have voice over IP, which is very much similar to having a computer in your system. The only difference is it's now a phone. So take a look at what you do from a day-to-day operation. You say, okay, well, I have an accounting department, I have a sales department. What do those people sit and use every single day? You might be using QuickBooks, so you need to make sure you have a backup of QuickBooks, and hopefully they're storing all that on a server. So you start out by backing up your servers, and then you start looking at your workstations. But you also want to back up not only locally, if you have a fire or a hurricane blows through the area, you need to make sure that you have this stuff backed up off-site.
Okay.
And if you lose your phones and you lose your business, you need a way of redirecting those phone calls. If a customer can't reach you, your website's down, they can't get in contact with you, your phones are down, you need to be able to redirect that stuff to another location.
So how do you make your business more flexible in that way? I mean, again, is it all a matter of, having Dropbox? I use Dropbox all the time for in fact, I never store anything on my laptop anymore. I put it in a cloud, and we've talked about, cloud computing. Is it that simple? Can you do that with everything?
Well, no, not necessarily, because especially for a small business, they don't have enough what's called bandwidth to stick everything up in the cloud. So if you're using Word or, a lot of businesses have specific applications that they use that will not work across the Internet. Some accounting departments and stuff have software that works. So, yes, having if you're small enough and your stuff will work across the cloud, for example, you can actually keep your servers in the cloud, but you may find that having stuff out in the cloud is going to run a lot slower than having it locally, and some applications actually won't work across the cloud. So I would recommend having the cloud as a secondary, in case you not able to work locally, you have at least something off-site. It may work, but at a much slower pace.
So is there a way to make your business more flexible apart, as you mentioned, you can use the cloud as a secondary backup, I guess. How would you make it more flexible?
Oh, absolutely. One of the things, for example, small businesses will go out and buy what's called small business server, and everything is sitting on that. Their whole business is relied on that one piece of equipment, which sits locally. So their email sits local, all their data is local. And one of the things I always say, look, you can virtualize whatever you have today, and what that means is you're no longer dependent on that one piece of hardware. And if you're backing up that one piece of hardware off-site, you also have the ability to bring that server up in a cloud or your business up in the cloud in the event that you lose your business. So your email and everything will continue to work. Or move as much of your system off-site. For example, email, there's no real reason to have that anymore locally. You can have that off-site or a hosted solution.
Okay. Now, I know one of the things that you've talked about is creating, and one of the things you're going to cover in the workshop is creating a disaster plan. How do you do that? How do you get started?
I will, at the seminar, I'll give out a sheet which an IT person or a business owner can use to actually create a disaster plan. And it has a lot to do with just testing. Sit down and take a look at what's important to your business, what services you use, and what services are necessary for you in order to constantly service your clients. If a hurricane blows through and you're going to be out of business for 2 weeks, you're going to lose a lot of those clients. They need a way of being able to reach you. One of the things I always say, you've got a phone system. What would happen if you lost that phone system? How would your customers get in touch with you? Something very simple would be just pick up the telephone, contact whoever your phone company is. Can they redirect your phone calls in the event that you're not going to be available for a couple of weeks? You want some way that your clients are going to be able to reach you.
You mean where?
Sorry, yeah?
No. I'm sorry. I was going to ask you something specific about redirecting the phone calls, but what were you going to say?
The same thing is if everything's in-house, like your website, if you don't have a phone system and you don't have a website and you're down for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, they're going to think that you're out of business. And for most of them, they're going to say, I can't wait for you to come back up. I have no way of contacting you. I need to start looking at a way to take care of my business.
Right. So we've been speaking with Tony Brown. He's president of Spider Networks, and he is Broward Score's newest acquisition, I should say. He's our IT security expert, and Tony's going to be giving a great workshop on September 4th called Bulletproof Your Business. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with more from Tony.
Do you own a business or are thinking about starting one? Turn to Broward Score, a nonprofit and a resource partner with the SBA. The experts at Broward Score are dedicated to educating entrepreneurs and helping small businesses start, grow, and thrive. Broward Score offers free one-to-one mentoring and low-cost workshops. For more, visit browardscore.org or call 954-356-7263. The facts and opinions expressed in this show are not those of Broward Score, 880 AM The Biz, or the sponsors. Listeners should determine their applicability in their own individual situations.
Welcome back to Score. I'm Patty Maldonado. We've been speaking with Tony Brown, president of Spider Networks. He's an IT specialist. He specializes in security, IT security. And he's going to be giving a great workshop called Bulletproof Your Business on September 4th. And it's a great way to learn how to protect your business from hackers, how to make sure that your business doesn't lose contact with its customers after a storm or a disaster. So, Tony, before we took the break, you were talking about how awful it is even when your phones go down and there's no way anybody can get in touch with you. I'm going to give you an example of a client that I have. He has a couple of businesses, and one of his businesses, he's an insurance adjuster, and his server went down, and he has his website on that server. And for whatever reason, there's a problem with the server, and the server can't come up. Now, not only is the website on the server, his email is run through that website. And so now he has no access email. There's no website. His Twitter is down because Twitter suddenly realized that he can't get email, so they think that the business is gone, so they've turned off the Twitter account. People can't call or reach his business. So it's pretty much, I think, an absolute disaster. What could he have done differently to have protected himself?
Well, the first and obviously the most important thing you can ever do is back up stuff, especially if you can back it up and create images of whatever you have.
Right.
And, today things have changed dramatically in the IT world. With virtualization, as long as he has a backup, he can convert that and actually either stick it in the cloud,
mm-hmm.
or he can, as long as he can come up with another piece of hardware where he can run his server,
mm-hmm.
he can actually restore it to any piece of hardware today, as long as he's got a full image or complete backup of his system.
I work with a lot of small businesses, and I've encountered quite a few, even some financial firms, I will have you know, that you would think would invest in having an IT professional come in every so often to look at their system. How much of an investment is that to have someone like yourself come in, look at the network, set up protections, and then come in every so often to make sure everything's running correctly? I would think that would be the best way to secure yourself in the event of a disaster, right? And whatever that disaster may be.
Yeah, it depends on the size of the business. If they have an existing IT firm or an IT staff, actually they can hire a business like myself or somebody like myself to come in and do some sort of consulting for them,
uh-huh.
and make recommendations. Again, it really depends on the size of the business. If they only have like one machine or and a server, it really wouldn't take much time at all.
Right.
Attending this workshop too, we can actually show businesses and people how to do a lot of this themselves. A lot of this is just common sense.
Really?
And, people stick their head in the sand and think, okay, well, I don't have to worry about this. And the truth be told, a significant amount of businesses go out of business because they don't do this stuff.
So we talked about some of the threats that are out there, a storm, a fire. What are some of the other threats?
Something as simple as a Trojan or a virus spreading through a system. Some of these things can actually spread from the server to each and every single workstation in a business if it's not protected correctly. I have actually seen businesses actually lose everything,
mm-hmm.
and by sheer luck, they've been able to come back and be functional. But that's not the way to do things. You need to back up. You need to look at this stuff long before you're in that situation.
And sometimes when you're on your computer, you get these like automatic windows that pop up. Like I use a Mac, so lately I've been getting something to protect my Mac. How do they, where does that come from, and are those legitimate?
A lot of this stuff is garbage. Windows does have its own updates and stuff like
mm-hmm.
that you are going to want to run. You're definitely going to want to run the patches. And yes, people always think, I have a Mac, I'm safe. But the truth be told, it doesn't matter what you have.
Mm-hmm.
The hackers are going after everybody. Apple's become a lot more popular, so they're starting to go after the Macs and the Linuxes, and
mm-hmm.
Everything needs to be patched and secure. And of course, the most important thing is to have a firewall in place to protect yourself.
Okay, I know that there's something else that you talk about, which is social engineering. What is that, and how is that a threat to your business?
Well, social engineering is probably the hardest thing to protect a business against, and that's people. People generally, even if you lock the system down, will bypass a lot of the security that's in place. You'll let somebody will walk in the door and sit down at a computer and say, "Hey, I'm here as working. I'm an IT guy. I was told to come in and look at your system." Or people tend to download music or they want to make their desktop look nicer. And in the background, a lot of that stuff will be a virus or something that will allow a hacker in from the outside world. So social engineering is what a person or an employee will do to circumvent the security of a system.
So you're going to, at your workshop, you're going to talk about some things to safeguard your computer system, your workplace computer system from, the grubby hands of your employees.
Yeah, it's one of the hardest things to do is to teach employers or people why they shouldn't do certain things. It's not like working at home where your loss is just a single machine or your pictures and stuff. But when you do this stuff in an office, it can affect your jobs. It can affect people that are sitting next to you. So you don't want to take down an entire system by doing something silly like downloading music or going on Facebook. Why shouldn't you be doing these things at the office?
And how about email? Everybody always wonders, is their email secure? And we've, know if you read the news or watch the news or listen to the news, that, within the last year, we've learned that maybe our email isn't as secure as we thought.
Yeah, that will be something I'll be talking about then, too. And, it is so easy to spoof an email and say, hey, look, I'm with a bank and I need to know, your username, your passwords. It happens all the time. There is no such thing as secure email. Once it leaves your office and goes across the Internet to somebody else, there is no such thing as secure email. So you never want to open up attachments from somebody that you don't know. You never want to send out critical information like Social Security numbers, any usernames or passwords, or anything like that unless you encrypt it in some way, because somebody else can actually open it and view this stuff across the Internet.
Yeah, I've always been just personally reluctant to put anything personal like that in an email. And so can you give us some tips on how to lock down a system? I know that's one of the issues that you'll be discussing.
One of the easiest way I always tell people is there is what's called an administrator username and password on every machine, on every network. For example, somebody sitting at home, they always just use either the username or the basic setup of a machine. And then what that allows to happen is, for example, if you download a piece of music or a screensaver or something like that, and in the background another piece of software can actually run and install on your machine without you even knowing about it. So the first thing I always tell everybody is never use your machine as an administrator. And what that does is allow somebody to install something without you knowing about it. So you create a second user and don't give that user any rights, and that's how you should normally be using your machines. So nothing will ever install on a machine without you knowing about it.
So, Tony, we've come to the end of the show. It's gone very, very quickly, and we're so grateful that you've come on to join us. Thank you again. We've been speaking with Tony Brown, president of Spider Networks, and he's runs an IT firm in Broward, and he focuses on security and compliance. And Tony's going to be giving a Broward Score workshop on Wednesday, September 4th, called Bulletproof Your Business. We've talked in a lot of generalities about some things that you could be doing in your own workplace or even at home to secure your information, especially on your computer. But Tony's going to go through some some specifics and some really cost-saving steps and tips that you can implement in your own workplace without having to hire someone if you wanted to go that route. So, Tony, thank you so much for taking the time out and joining us.
No, thank you very much for having me on. And yes, please attend the workshop. I will do everything I can to try and help businesses or people lock down their systems and help you set up a disaster plan.
So log on to broward.score.org to find out more about Tony's workshop, and we'll be back next week with another show from SCORE.
Thank you for listening to SCORE on 880 AM The Biz, a weekly program designed for South Florida's small businesses with experts from Broward SCORE. For questions or comments, contact broward.score.org. SCORE is a project of Broward SCORE, a nonprofit and a resource partner of the Small Business Administration. Visit broward.score.org.